Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and today we are going to be discussing another quote. And we're going to be hunting in is it Tusk Deep? Dustkeep Valley. So, pull our first opponent. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, please consider going to patreon.com/JulianMcBain if you want to support my work. If you do, you'll get exclusive content every month. Okay. First off, I want to apologize that this got out so late. The last week and a half has been very interesting. And on that note, there is a strong chance that I will be altering my schedule in the near future, and I will keep you all posted. That is not an immediate happening, but there's a strong chance that the schedule will alter, so just be prepared for that. It might be that it's something that you don't see, or it might be that my actual release schedule changes, and I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, and I'll keep you all informed. I just don't want you to be taken by surprise. Long story short, when I set up this schedule, I was not accounting for the possibility of relationships. So there. Okay, so the quote in question is by Frank Herbert. And it's, "The respect for truth comes close to being the basis for all morality." And it's a very interesting quote, especially in light of what people see as truth. And I think that's something that we all have to think about, is what is truth? Because if truth is the basis for all morality, and I actually think it is. I think truth is the basis for all morality. You have to be able to define truth. Because I don't think truth necessarily has to be empirical fact. Okay? There is truth in empirical fact, and things that are empirically factual are indeed true. But there's more to truth than just empirical facts. And I think this is something that a lot of the... there are people who are very grounded in hard science and in empirical facts and things of that nature. And there's a utility to that that's very good. But I think they miss out on something. And I don't know what it is. I think that they're missing the less empirical and more metaphysical foundations that we build our societies on. And I know there are a lot of people who would not like that being said, or who would disagree with me. And if you disagree with me, I'd love to know your reasons why. That's why we have a comment section. I do read everyone's comments. I try to remember to respond to all of them. I am not always successful. Or if I don't have anything worth saying, I'm not going to respond to it. It might also be that I don't know what to say to a given situation, because that can happen too. So just be aware, I do read all comments. And while I might not agree with what you're saying, I will at least respect your opinion. It's like that old quote, you know, I don't agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. That's pretty much my take on a lot of things. Are these guys actually fighting someone, or... I guess technically I can't see the player model, but there's a green dot there, kind of hidden underneath. I'm not taking damage, though. Oh, there's... Afka? Oh. She's not getting hit at all, so I'm not going to worry too much about her. Oh, it looks like she has a regen buff on her. Okay. Well, I'm not going to deliberately steal anything more from her. No, no, oh, I guess I grabbed aggro. Sorry about that. There. I put an apology in chat. She's probably AFK. But in case she isn't and was trying to, like, train evade or some shit, I put the apology in chat. And I think that's a respect thing. You know, when you screw up or when you think you might have screwed up, apologize. And figure the rest out later. Oh, great. You're not... Okay, well, this is happening. We'll make it work. So anyway, so truth. What is truth? And I think that's what we have to define. What is truth outside of the realm of empirical fact, I think is the better way to put it. And that's something that I think a lot of people have struggled with. I think that's basically the purview of philosophers, of which I like to think of myself as one. And oftentimes it's actually the realm of theologians, another thing that I like to think of myself as, which makes sense considering I'm going into ministry. Or at least contemplating it. I shouldn't say that definitively. It's being talked about. But so what is philosophical truth? And I think philosophical truth is what defines right and wrong. What defines right and wrong? And that's not always an easy thing to figure out. There are some things that we basically all agree on, right? Murder is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because you're taking someone else's life. You're taking the life of an innocent. Is what murder is technically the taking of life of an innocent. Specifically someone who is not committing a crime against you in that moment. Or has not, or does not putting you in danger of being committed against you. Another one is, it is wrong to take other people's stuff. It's wrong to take other people's stuff. That's the, you know, theft is frowned upon in every society. For the most part. Now, we may argue on what the definition of theft is, but the concept of theft is considered morally abhorrent in every society. So okay, these are a couple of things that we can all basically agree upon. And so what does that mean? That means that we have a foundation upon which we can rest our social landscape. And those things are fundamentally true because we as a species across all societies, regardless of other factors, so all concluded that yes, theft is wrong. Therefore, it must be a truth. Maybe we don't even know why it's true, but it's obviously true. And it is a form of harm when you steal from other people. So, you know, if that is fundamentally true, which of course it is, it has to be grounded in something. What's it grounded in? We don't know. It is beyond the scope of what we can actually conceptualize. We understand why it's wrong. Taking other people's things is harmful to them. They worked for it. They earned it. It's theirs. When you take it from them, not purchase, but or trading something to them for it, when you just take it and it's not yours, you are causing harm. And we recognize that as a species. Can you stop dodging, bro? Really? Thank you. Oh, this idiot got stuck on the world geometry. So okay. We understand that it's true. It is deeply ingrained into everything we read and write that theft is wrong. That murder is wrong. Not homicide. Murder. And there is a difference between those. And you're probably going, well, Julian, what's the difference? Well, there is a difference. And this is something that actually people don't actually understand. That Homicide is the killing of another individual. We're going to get into the legal framework. Every jurisdiction defines it a little bit differently. This is my best interpretation of it. I am not a lawyer, so do not consider this legal advice. But we're going to get into the weeds a little bit, and I'm going to speak of what useful definitions I'm using for a particular thing. So, in the context of what I'm saying, murder is defined as the killing of another individual, whether premeditated or not, when they have done you no harm. Manslaughter would be the accidental killing of someone, regardless of harm. That's unintentional. It may be negligent, but it's not intentional. You didn't set out to kill a person. Like murder, first degree murder, or murder one, is most often described as pre-planned murder, premeditated. You planned it, you intended to do it, you went out and you did it. Murder two is usually spontaneous. You're in an argument, something's going on, and then crime of opportunity, and then you murder the person, and that's murder two more often than not. And some jurisdictions have a murder three of varying description, and again, it's going to vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Manslaughter, it's almost universally an accident, or it was an unavoidable consequence of actions. Even if it was an unintended but unavoidable consequence of actions, I think was another way it could be put. And I think that's usually manslaughter one, negligent homicide. Both are considered homicide. You know what else is homicide? Self-defense killings. It's homicide. That doesn't mean you're guilty of a crime in some jurisdictions. And I believe that there is a moral imperative for you to defend yourself. That's my position on things. But it is homicide, regardless, by most definitions of the word. So I'm just throwing that out there. I know I kind of got into the weeds there, but in the event that it comes up, I wanted to throw out the different variations of terms, because like I work in insurance, right? And so there are when you get into the weeds and you're trying to explain something to a customer or someone who doesn't know much about insurance, which is most people, because who the hell wants to learn about insurance? Nobody gets excited about insurance. Okay, well, there are a few people. The people who do a lot of the commercials are probably excited about insurance, but I work with it day in and day out, and believe me, most people are not excited about insurance. They don't even want to talk to people like me, because I'm there in case shit, and they don't want shit to happen. But it's just like in insurance, you have homeowners, the term homeowners. The term homeowners means two things. You have the category of policies that are classified as homeowners, and then under that category, you have the individual policies that are classified as homeowners. In addition to that, you also have renters and rental dwelling policies and other policies of that ilk. So, no, I'm sorry, condo owners, not rental dwellings. Rental dwellings is separate. So as you can see, that can get very confusing. Homicide, back on topic, is not necessarily morally bereft if you end up committing it in defense of yourself or another. Murder is. See the difference? There, see, I was able to tie it back, and I got there relatively quickly. I'm getting better at this shit. So and there's truth to that. So, okay, if we understand these to be fundamental truths, where do those truths come from? And they're embedded in ancient stories. They're embedded all across history, in the folklore we have, in our religious texts, and in the Epic of Gilgamesh. These fundamental truths are laced throughout human culture, up and down the spectrum of human experience. And it's because we figured these truths out throughout time. And to this day, the way that our society runs is by accepting these things as true. And that is the basis of our morality. But what makes them true? Well, I don't even think we understand where they come from. You know, the origins of these things are ancient. And we as a species are relatively young. But even going back, what, 3.5 million years, I think, is when the first humans actually walked the earth. If we go, because humans are basically anything under genus Homo. And so we started in the late Pliocene, and we're all the way up to present, 2.8 million years ago. Okay, 2.8 million years ago is when the first humans walked the earth. And by a long shot, the first humans are nowhere near as capable as we are now. Hominini. So there's an assumption that we developed out of the Australopithecus into genus Homo about 2.8 million years ago. But for lack of a better comparison, Homo habilis is the first human. That's 2.1 million years ago. It's doubtful they even had a language as we would recognize it. But that's where tools came in. And once you have tools, you have a way to use them. What are the first things that humans, that species use tools for? They use them as weapons. They build things and they use them as weapons. Well, that right there is going to create the basis for the need for a truth. You have to have some sort of core of truth to be able to use them and not kill everyone. So it could be argued that's where the basis for human spirituality was. And that's a really interesting thought. I doubt a lot of people have really thought about that because, I mean, codified spirituality is relatively young, probably 6,000 or 7,000 years, if that. If you go back, like ancient Egypt, you're talking, what, 7,000, 8,000 years ago at the most, and they had a really good codified religion. You had Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia had their own religious grouping. So, let's see, the culture of Mesopotamia. The Babylonian Empire was, 2300 BC is when it was founded. How do these idiots get stuck on these walls? Oh, I see. His head got stuck. Ha! Not very smart. So Babylon, which is the first recorded major empire that we can really look back to, which was centered in Mesopotamia, which is the cradle of humanity, to this day a constant war zone, although it's mostly Iraq. Let's get out of their hut. But I mean, this is ground that has been fought over for all of human history, and it only goes back 2300 to 2300 BC. That's what, 4,300 years, 4,321 years. That's it. And I mean, there were more primitive cultures before that, but that's when civilization really became a thing. Babylon was probably the first true civilization in the way that we see it. I mean, yeah, there were proto-civilizations, but I mean, we're talking with codified laws and structures. So that being said, before those existed, we had to figure out what the truth was. And they codified it, and it wasn't perfect. And we've refined it over the years, and it's ended up in places like I mentioned before, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then later after that, it ended up in the Bible, and then after that, it ended up in the Quran. And then after that, it ended up in all sorts of different books of sacred law, for lack of a better term, and that was known as truth. And so that was the basis of our morality. And I think that that's very interesting that to this day we follow the same moral structures that have held humanity together for thousands of years, because we know them to be true and correct, even if the stories we use to tell them are not empirically true. One of my favorites on that one is, how do you teach a story that's not empirically true, but or not empirically factual, but it's true? And I know that there are people in my church that would balk for me saying this, but the story of Noah is a great one. And, if you get into the story of Noah, he builds an ark to avoid a gigantic flood that's supposed to destroy the world. Now, I mean, the story itself, if you take it on its factual face, it's absurd, because you could melt all the ice on the planet and it would not cause the whole world to be covered in water. But the fact of the matter is, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is there's going to be chaos in your life. You're going to have to be prepared for it. And if you're not prepared, devastation. But if you are prepared, you will endure. And you might endure through long periods of struggle. Noah dealt with it, 40 days and 40 nights of rain? And then how many more weeks or months on the water while he waited for them to recede? We don't really have a good time. Well, I have never seen a good timeline for how long Noah was in the ark and his family. And there's probably a scholar out there that's done it, if it's not actually codified. I would have to go back through the story, but I don't think it's actually declared. If there's someone that's watching this that knows, please go ahead and correct me in comments. It's been a hot minute since I've read the story myself. But the fact of the matter is he weathers a massive problem because he prepared. And true, his orders to prepare came from a divine being, but it's not the point of the story. The point of the story is, and it could be said that when your brain says, shit could happen, we should prepare, that might be an application of what my friends and I like to call the divine 2x4. And what's the divine 2x4? Well, it actually originated from D&D. And when a DM was trying to get the players, to do something, to move the story along, and they kept screwing around, they'd use the divine 2x4, quote-unquote, to force them back onto the main storyline, and that would work. Hang on, guys. Sorry about that, guys. I got a phone call, and it was one of my family members who borrowed my vehicle. And I'm like, oh, great, something went wrong. And it's like, do you have a mask in the car? And it's like, no. Where I work, I don't even need a mask anymore. And if I need a mask, I bring one with me when I leave. I'm not going to leave a bunch of paper masks in my car. I'm the only one who uses it 90% of the time. And if I need a mask, I bring the damn thing with me. Sorry. Little frustration there. But, anyway. So that's the foundation of truth, is that we have this story, and it's teaching us that we need to be prepared for big, tumultuous change, chaos, things that can do harm. And by being prepared, we can make it through. And see, even if you don't believe that the story of Noah is factual, and honestly, I think it's deliberately an allegory. I firmly believe Noah is an allegory. I accept it as true, because the story itself tells the truth. But I do not think it is factually accurate. And so, what that tells us is, and maybe that means I'm not, one of the most faithful. I don't believe that's the case. I believe that you can understand and accept the purpose of a story without believing it is factually accurate. It's a fable. And that's how we teach these morals. And so, And I think there's wisdom in that. I kind of jumped around tonight, and I'm sorry about that, but I kind of wanted to cover that, and it's been kind of rolling around in my head. And after a week and a half of things not being the way they normally go for me, I'm really happy to have just been able to do that, you know, to talk about this with you guys. So, okay, we're going to knock down that maffoid, and we're going to drop a sleep near and get to somewhere. Well, actually, no, I can just do my outro here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate the support, and we'll see you in the next one.